Were you minding your own business when a semi truck turned into a 30-foot tall robot and fell directly on top of you? Did a Camaro suddenly sprout arms and hurl you into a restaurant? Did a vending machine attack you for no reason at all? Then you may be entitled to compensation. At Prime Legal Associates, we specialize in transformer related injuries, including being crushed by a sentient vehicle, collateral damage from an Autobot battle, psychological distress from learning that your car has been watching you this whole time, severe burns from accidental alien laser fire, and loss of limbs due to being too close to a transformation. You have rights, and we will fight for them. Don't let Optimus Prime's big speeches distract you from the big medical bills you now have. Call 1-800-TRANSFORM today. Use promo code POSTMORTEM for a free consultation and a commemorative I Survived the Battle of Los Angeles t-shirt. Welcome to Movie Postmortem, where we dissect films of all kinds, whether they're good, bad, or those guilty pleasures we just can't quit. I'm Reggie Hill, and I'm joined by my nephew, Isaiah Brown. Together, we're here to examine what worked, what didn't, and why we keep coming back for more. So grab your popcorn because no movie is safe from the scalpel on Movie Postmortem. Okay, hello everybody. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Transformers, the live action film which came out in 2007. So I'll give a kind of detailed summary of the plot just because there's so much to talk about. Sam Witwicky's life takes an unexpected turn when he purchases his first car, which turns out to be Bumblebee, an Autobot, a type of robot that can transform into, a vehicle. Unbeknownst to him, his great grandfather was a discoverer who found the body of Megatron, the ruler of the evil Decepticons, about a century earlier. And his great grandfather's glasses had imprinted or had the information encoded in them that led to the coordinates of something called the Allspark, a powerful artifact that could restore the Transformers home world of Cybertron or give them the power to take over Earth. And so, what Sam Witwicky goes through is an adventure where he comes to discover the nature of this Cybertronian war taking place on Earth. He makes new friends, human and robot, and ultimately helps to decide the fate of both Earth and Cybertron in this film. So, is
Yeah,
that a fair summary, Isaiah?
it is. You can also call it the cube if you're lazy.
Yeah, because they do that half the time. They call it the Cube or the Allspark.
I was just like, my God.
The Allspark Cube. Is that too long to say?
It's just like, my God, just pick one of them.
Yeah. And so let's before we get into, dissecting the film and get into the nitty-gritty the way we do here on Movie Postmortem, let's as always start with our overall impressions and ratings. And so I'll give a little bit more background for this film. So Isaiah, you chose this film for us to discuss today. You want to get into kind of why you picked this film?
There's actually a very good reason why I want us to dive down this rabbit hole of the Bayformers movies. First of all, Transformers, before anything else, is a large part of my childhood here. And I'm not talking about G1 or like any of like the other offshoot shows or anything like that. This movie was how I got into Transformers, which is both a good and bad thing.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that.
Yeah, this is how I first discovered Transformers. And so I was like, I don't remember how old I was because this movie came out in like 2007, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know how old I was. And frankly, I have questions about my parents for letting me watch it when I was that young.
Oh yeah, you were far better than what we were exposed to when we were kids.
Okay. This movie's kind of been like a sleeper like pleasure of mine that I have not rewatched in years for some reason. And so it was only this year why I decided to dive back into it because, well, number one, Transformers 1 was amazing. And I wanted to remind myself how far we've come from the now widely known terribleness that was the Bayformers movies. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like a revisit of where we started from and how we got to here pretty much.
No, I think that's fair. And as you mentioned, that this is the start of kind of your love with Transformers in your childhood. Since I'm older than you, and I want to get into the specifics of how old each of us is. People who have listened to this podcast understand Isaiah is my nephew. I was literally a kid when the original Transformers came out in the 80s.
Yeah,
And so,
you had the good old stuff where back then Megatron was a Walter P-38.
yeah, he was a pistol you could actually stick up a store with.
Yeah, I have transformed into Earth's mightiest weapon. Pew!
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of commentary there that you can kind of have about Megatron transforming into a gun. But no, so like when this was in its heyday back in the 80s, the Transformers toy line and the TV show, that was just the coolest thing ever. I just feel like Hasbro really just had a home run with that. And I looked it up today and kind of preparing for the podcast. Overall, they've generated over like $25 billion in revenue just from Transformers, including merchandise, toys, and all that. And so
hmm
I was part of that original, phase of kids who absolutely love the toys and the TV show. I never would have thought back then that you would ever have a live action movie. Like I was around when the biggest thing was Transformers the movie, the animated movie, which was so dark and gritty and violent. So,
Yeah,
years later when we got to Transformers, I was one of the many people who was very excited to see the live action version of this film.
yeah,
But yeah, and so both of us, I thought there was a good reason for us to cover this film. Both of us have, a strong connection to Transformers from different, kind of generations.
yeah. It's just funny because you always sound disappointed when I told you this is like my first introduction to Transformers. You were just like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry for you."
I tell people it's part of what I've accepted. That's the way life works, is that
Yeah,
somebody's favorite film will be the remake of something, for another person. And
yeah,
uh,
but don't get it twisted. My favorite Transformers property of all time is still Transformers One and Transformers the movie.
yeah.
So we can pull up your britches for on that one.
Yeah, that's good to hear. We'll continue the podcast now.
Yeah.
And so give me your overall kind of rating and opinion of the film.
Okay. Because I literally got done rewatching the movie literally 5 minutes ago before hopped in this phone call. I will say, I believe this movie is what you could be considered the ultimate guilty pleasure here. Because I believe this movie, with as many flaws as it has, and by God, does it have a lot of flaws, it's still a fun watch. But again, like I said, it has its flaws. So I think with even with how fun it is watching it, and with Shia LaBeouf's hit or miss performance in this movie, I say this is a bona fide 3 out of 5. Maybe you can fluctuate in between that, between how much you like Shia LaBeouf. But yeah, I would stick between a 3 out of 5. Still enjoyed it though.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel pretty much the same way you do. This is I agree. This is the ultimate guilty pleasure film. This is stuff exploding, big special effects, blockbuster, summer movie. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. I found myself surprised how much I really enjoyed most of this film. But like you said, it's got everything you want for, that blockbuster. I hate to use the phrase we talked about before, kind of turn your brain off type of
Yeah. See,
entertainment.
yeah, I hate that phrase too, but really, that's what you have here.
Yeah, I feel that this film worked, and why I would give it even a 3.5 out of 5 is I think that even if you did not know what Transformers was, you can enjoy this film because it's just a really fun blockbuster film. They spent a lot of money on this film and it shows. But Michael Bay does a really good job of making this a fun roller coaster ride type of film. And I think that's why it became so popular and the series and the franchise went on to make so much money because it was like, yeah, we get that you don't have to understand a lot about Transformers. And I would argue at some parts in the franchise, they'll try to keep it, focused on
Yeah,
this film. But at
let's
certain
keep it
parts of
in.
the franchise, you're like, this has nothing to do with Transformers, but it's still a very fun, big budget action film. So that's why I
Yeah,
like it.
and spoilers with what he's talking about with quick little relation. Merlin the Wizard is now canon to Transformers
Yeah.
for some reason.
For some reason that's where they go. And so yeah, like I would recommend this film for people who don't care about robots that can transform into vehicles. It's still a
Yeah,
really fun adventure action film if you like big explosions and remarkably good CGI. I was actually impressed by that.
yeah. The CGI still holds up even better than I remember it being.
Yes, and so I would say this is a film, for you. But
Yeah,
one of the things you have to understand about this film is that Michael Bay is not a Transformers fan.
yeah.
This is
I'm,
not the
um,
type of movie where you're like, oh, I love this. I've envisioned making this. Like, no, no, no. This could be GoBots the movie, and it would turn out the same way. He does not care about them at all.
yeah, I am almost certain that he didn't want to make this until he learned that these robots had lore.
Yeah. I would say it was probably he just realized, oh, wait, I can do a whole bunch of really cool explosions with this. All right.
Irregardless of that point, I think our previous rating still stands.
Yeah, like I said, like that's the thing where I was surprised. It's clear that Michael Bay knows very little about Transformers. I would say in some cases the actual personalities and characters of the Transformers is butchered, but
Yeah.
this is still a
Well,
very fun
again,
film.
here's the problem. The whole like negative connotation with Bayformers. Those issues kind of start in this movie, and they only get worse as you keep going on.
Yes, and that was the thing. Like I felt myself while I was watching this. My immediate thought was like, "Wow, I want to pop in the second one." I was like, "Oh wait, I remember."
I
I'm
don't
having like flashbacks about
wait.
the second one, and when I thought I was like, "No, wait, there was a reason I stopped watching these."
I was like, if you I'll be honest, I'm not one that endorses this, but if you want to watch Revenge of the Fallen, I recommend you do it a few drinks in,
Yeah.
because that movie is, oh boy.
No, but for this to see, like, finally, with the special effects capabilities, the big budget set pieces that could happen in a film like this, I remember watching Transformers. That was like when I lived in Los Angeles for the first time. And I was like, wow, I really remember enjoying this. And I enjoyed it even more watching it, this second time. And so yeah, so we both agree that it's a guilty pleasure film. You have a 3 star, I have a 3.5 star. So we're pretty close on this. And so let's dive into our causes of death or causes of celebration. Do you want to kick
Yeah.
us off?
How about this? I feel like it's equal amounts praise for this movie, equal amounts cause of death, because I feel like it's a half and half here.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Now I would like to give off my first cause of celebration here. Peter Cullen, you are still amazing as Optimus Prime.
Yeah, every time I hear him, it just takes me back to my childhood. And I was so happy
Yeah.
that they got him to, voice Optimus Prime again.
Yeah, because for Peter Cullen's career, he wasn't really Optimus Prime in a major like picture as this since Transformers the movie back in 19 whatever. So I'm saying whatever because I can't remember specifically what the dates were.
I thought you were doing it just to make it sound like I watched that movie like 47 years ago or something.
No, I genuinely cannot remember the exact dates.
Pretty sure it was either 86 or 87.
Okay, yeah, and so this was his first time in years coming back to be Optimus Prime in a big motion picture, and it's like he didn't even take a break. Like Optimus Prime, Peter Cullen slash Optimus Prime could say, Isaiah, I need you to go downtown and pick up milk, and I'll be there and back within 10
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, like his voice is so iconic, but it just has a richness and a kindness to it. I think that's the essential thing where you have to have for Optimus Prime
Yeah,
that it was really good. And I have to say, I'm not trying to throw out a cause of death here, but I really think that this stands out as a cause of celebration because overall, I don't think the voice work and acting for the rest of the robots stood out at all.
again, that's why I'm starting with Prime.
Yeah.
Like
So it was
one
like,
of the robots literally doesn't even talk.
yeah, so it was like you had this amazing voice acting performance, but everybody else it was just like nothing.
Yeah, yeah. For Peter Cullen, this is his life's work, and for everyone else, it's just paycheck.
I just think Shia LaBeouf deserves so much credit for making Sam Witwicky such a fun character to watch and really doing a good job of anchoring this film.
Yeah,
This is a film that is really decided by whether or not we can stick with him as the human character for like the first hour of the film.
yeah. Because here's the thing: it's like when I watched this movie originally, when I was like really young, I found myself being annoyed by Sam. But here, I'm still a little bit somewhat annoyed, but that's understandable because I was that age a little bit a while ago, so I understand. And also, he is understandably freaking out about all of this.
Yes, and that's what I like about it. His acting, and this is where the thing, like you're acting against nothing, I'm assuming is very hard. And so he does a great job freaking out, just being in the moment for whatever the scene calls for. And that's what makes it real. When you have these explosions, you have to imagine these robots flying over your head and being terrified. Shia just sells all of that so well that it really grounds the film and just makes it really fun because he puts you there. He puts you in those moments. He does a fantastic job.
Yeah, because how many people would see a giant robot go from their like pickup truck to a giant robot and be like, "Huh, that's neat." He is just probably like, "Oh boy, I'm gonna die. Please don't kill me. I'm gonna
Yeah.
die. I'm gonna die."
Yeah, and so like I felt like, oh yeah, I really like Sam, as our human kind of stand-in. Because that's the thing. Let's be real, we have to go behind the scenes on these types of movies. This cannot be a film where the Transformers are going to be the main characters. It's too expensive. So you're going to have humans
Yeah,
driving the story,
and
all
plus
the
for
way
what the
through.
story they were trying to tell, that couldn't work either.
Yeah, and so you need to have a human character that you root for, that you care about. And I think, even Michael Bay later said he kind of gave credit to Steven Spielberg, who was producer on this film, gave him credit with the idea like this is a story about a boy in his car. And so you see Sam getting, his first car. It turns out to be Bumblebee, and then this is the story of what Sam realizes about the world and the universe because he got his first car and later found out that his car is actually a sentient robot.
Yeah,
It goes from there.
it's like the line where they're in the helicopter. He's like, "So I bought a car, turned out to be a giant robot. Who knew?"
Yeah. So, but you have to care about him, and I don't know how I would describe Sam. I was thinking about that. He's not like a nerd or a geek,
Yeah,
you know, he's
he's just a teenager.
he's just a teenager. He's not a loser,
Well, correction. He's a teenager that doesn't know how to close his mouth.
Yeah. And so, what kind of what Shia brings to the character is again like a person you can root for, but he's not a nerd, geek, loser. You get the idea. He's not successful with the ladies, but again, like he seems to be hardworking, clever, brave, especially. It's just like, yeah, it's an easy character to root for, and Shia brings a lot of humor and personality to the role, which I really appreciated.
And here's a surprising cause of celebration for me in this movie. Megan Fox, aka I can't remember her actual name.
Yeah,
Michaela. Yeah, that's it.
Michaela
Yeah,
Baines.
yeah. She is more than just a pretty face in this movie. She actually has her call of action in this movie as well.
Yes, I think it's very weird, and I've commented to friends when we've talked about movies and things about this. Megan Fox is good in this film. I think the interesting thing, and it's a big story we don't have time to go into in this podcast. You can see the moment that people really were going to say, like, this is going to be a star. We love her. And then kind of the public turned against her. And so she's kind of one of these people that I think people built her up in order to tear her down, but she's just not horrible or, anything in this film. And so, like, it's just really weird. It was kind of nice to go back to this film and remember this being like that big breakthrough moment for her and seeing why people were just so captivated by her.
Yeah,
And their interactions have to really be there in this film between Sam and this not necessarily a girlfriend but again a love interest that he has
yeah,
that you want to see them not necessarily get together. It's not a romance. I like
yeah.
that they don't go that far with it during the movie, but you have
Well,
to
they don't go that far during the movie. They go that far at the end of the
at the end
movie.
of the movie, yes, which again we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, pretty much this movie is a speed run into Sam getting a girlfriend.
Yeah. But during the movie, you get the idea that not only is she a person who would be useful for, the all of the events happening in this film, but you understand kind of why she's tagging along and doing all of this. For me, one of the biggest causes of celebration for this film is Michael Bay did a really good job of making sure that all of the stuff that could be practical was practical. He does
Yes,
not over rely on CGI.
I
In
was gonna bring
most
that up too.
scenes, yeah, I think only the robots are CGI. If
Yeah,
there's an
most of the explosions
explosion,
are real.
if there's a tank flying, if there's a bus blowing up and getting cut in half, that's all real. One of my friends lived downtown and she would tell me like she saw the sets, and everything. She like it looks like a war zone down here. And so it really adds that realism to everything that you're seeing. And a lot of directors try to like cheat and not do that. Michael Bay really put the money on the screen, when he's capturing it with film if possible. And I think like that just makes the film really look timeless. And it's very exciting. You're not just watching, kind of animation happening. You're watching, real explosions. You're watching people who have their lives on the line, like the actors and the stunt people, because sometimes it looks
Yeah,
kind of dangerous.
because here's a little behind the scenes, little tidbit. or a factoid to help correlate your point here. There is the scene where Scorponok is first appearing in the desert around the soldiers, and they're just like the explosions are happening underneath the sand. Those were real explosions. That's where when the actors are like freaking out, like dancing on the sand, like, oh crap, we're about there. That's real emotion. Michael Bay told them how the explosions were going to work. They could actually be injured. So their freaking out there was 100% real.
No, it shows. And actually, that's a good time maybe to bring this up. My favorite scene in the entire movie is that Scorponok attack. That is just so perfect. I love the music. I love just the action on scene. I like the escalation of like we need bigger and
Yeah.
bigger weapons to take this thing out.
Yeah. My favorite line of the whole movie. Well, one of my favorite lines of the whole movie is that one black dude when he's on the phone. He's like, "Man, I don't know that man. If you could see what this is."
Tyrese as Epps is great, and I really remember like just loving him in this film and seeing him later. Like he just brings so much energy to that
Yeah.
role, and
I
like
think I
that's just a
replayed him
great
saying that
scene.
line twice.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Like also when they have to call, for an airstrike
Yeah.
and they don't have any of their radio equipment, so they have to
Yeah.
make a cell phone and
He's
use
he's
a
like,
credit
where's
card.
your credit card? My pocket. You got like six pockets, man. Left cheek,
Left
left
cheek,
cheek.
left cheek. Yeah. Like that's what I said. Like this film just has so many great fun moments like that because everybody is just dialed to like 11 in terms of intensity in these
Yeah.
moments. You got things blowing up everywhere, and it just really, like I said, it's just a fun film because of those types of moments that they had in the story. So yeah, like that whole scene where they're like, okay, just bring the rain. Like we need something from like an AC-130 firing down on this thing. It's just really fun. This is not a cause of celebration or cause of death, even. I think this is just kind of a big overarching, topic that we have to cover.
Yeah.
Many people think that this film, in particular from Michael Bay, is simply military propaganda. Yeah.
That's the thing. I can understand why people would say that because even though the military does get their keystrokes handed to them when they first go against Blackout when he first invades, there is that scene later on where they're looking cool in the city, and that guy Lennox, he has Sam. He's like, "Listen to me, you're now a soldier," and blah 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 blah. I was like, "Oh yeah, I can see where people feel like this is propaganda now."
Yeah, and so just to clear the air, put the facts out there. Michael Bay was supported by and consulted and had the approval of all the branches of the military when he made this film. It's been very clear and open about that. They worked with him to make this film. I think that's the thing that you see in this film. You see this in a lot of his other films. Most of this film is about how well coordinated the military works together to do things. You
Yeah,
see that in
they have
terms.
such good communication that where even when it goes down, they can still talk to each other. They have high powered weapons. They're a unit. They work together. Live or die, they do their job, kind of
Yes.
thing, right?
And I would say we'll get to this where I said like it's partly a cause of death later. The big hero in this film isn't really Optimus Prime or the Autobots, in my opinion.
It's the
It's
military.
the military, yo.
Yeah,
And so I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I agree. You cannot ignore that fact. Again, Michael Bay was very open about that. The U.S. military, four branches at least, worked with him on this film, and it shows. This is a military propaganda-esque film in that way. You can't separate that from the story.
yeah,
I think the unfortunate thing is that it takes over the story at the end, but it is what it is. Again, like I think that was what Michael Bay decided to do, and as kind of why
yeah.
I wanted to bring it up. Also, like me and you, we also talk about this in a lot of films where it's like, okay, you ignored the fact that we do have a U.S. military. How would they have dealt with this threat or whatever? So
And
this
yeah,
film does deal with that.
it's like it's one of the reasons why I criticize I think it's A Quiet Place so much to where
Yeah.
the aliens just kind of invade the military can't do anything. I was like, there's no way, right? But here, the military does something. They do
Yeah.
so much, in fact, that kind of makes the Autobots look incompetent in comparison.
Yes. And so, like, I think that's what I said before. You could have imagined a version of this film where instead of Sam being the central character, it could have just been Lennox and Epps. Like they're the military guys who we know the Decepticons attack the bases. Like they could have just been their story. So I am glad that they decided to focus it on a regular teenager. But
Yeah.
yeah, you cannot ignore the heavy-handed military aspect of this film. One of the things I did like, the robots aren't invincible.
They're tough, but we do have a way of taking them down.
I can't criticize Michael Bay consulting with the military because, again, I do like a realistic portrayal of military might. It makes no sense if every movie just has that lazy cop out of, oh, they have a force field and our weapons don't do anything. We do have impressive weapons, so you would think that, yeah, if you could coordinate a good military response, you'd be able to
Yeah.
deal with it. And again, like they have clever ways of
Mm.
the film of saying, like, okay, it's not that we don't have the weapons, they've knocked out our communication. So we can't actually talk to each other to get, the big, guns to come in and take these things out because
Yeah.
we can't talk to each other.
Hey, Tom Cruise in World of Worlds. Why'd you give the tripods a force field? They didn't have that in the novel. The military
Yes,
is actually
exactly.
competent there.
I actually love that you pointed that out. I always say that's one of the things for the novel that I really wish that these movie makers would appreciate. They were not invincible. It was just a good stand-up, drag-out war where it was like they won
Yeah.
some, we won some.
It was an actual war in the novel instead of just a slaughter that was in the
Yeah.
movie. Come on.
So yeah, I like that. I was like, okay, yeah, we can take these things down and we can coordinate and do well. And so yeah, so again, that's kind of why I wanted to bring that up there. Like, it's not a only cause of death or celebration. I think it's just something to be aware of. And yeah, it's hit or miss sometimes, but it's there. You can't take the military aspect out of this film.
This is both a cause of celebration and a cause of death. The design of the Cybertronians in this movie, they're uh they're okay. I like how they took the whole like robots in disguise thing. They took it to like 11, to where like when they're transforming and they go from car mode to robot mode or plane mode to robot modes. I like how the gears are shifting, things are moving around. It really does look like a car is shifting parts around to walk bipedal. Now here's
Yeah,
where I take away a point: the faces. The faces on some of the robots are just. Uh,
I agree, and I think that's where the line between celebration into death happens. So I think this is a good place to kind of transform our discussion into our causes of death. The transformation effects are very, very nice. You can tell they spend time, like you said, to show. I can see the car parts moving. I think the actual robot designs are atrocious. I think not just the faces, it just looks like mashes of metal. And I think it just fails kind of one of the fundamental things I would ask any designer to do when you're doing something like this. Even a kid should be able to draw me a picture of what these robots look like. And I don't think you could clearly distinguish more than maybe two of these. You would say Bumblebee is yellow and Prime is kind of red. Otherwise, the others, they don't even look distinctly different enough to say, like, oh, I would recognize the drawing of this if I saw it. Or more importantly, they don't have distinct personalities. And that's another cause of death for me is outside of Optimus, all the robots are pretty much the same.
oh, well, are we now into our causes of death?
Yeah,
Because
we can
I feel
let's
like we should probably break
yeah.
for an advertisement.
Yeah, let's do an advertising break and then we'll come back with our full causes of death. Looking for adventure, craving an unforgettable trip, then climb aboard the Hoover Dam Express, the only tour bus that takes you straight to one of America's greatest landmarks and then leaves you there. What you get? A one-way ticket to wonder. Enjoy the breathtaking views, stunning architecture, and overwhelming realization that now you have to find your own way home. A friendly, informative tour guide. They'll tell you all about the dam right before driving off without you. Complimentary bottled water. Stay hydrated while you desperately Google how to find your way back to civilization. A deep personal reflection on your life choices. Nothing builds character like being stranded at a national landmark. Important details. The bus leaves promptly at noon without you. No refunds, no exception, no GPS help. We are not responsible for happens after we drop you off. And for a limited time only, use promo code POSTMORTEM for a free map. Legal disclaimer, the map is just a picture of the Hoover Dam. Hoover Dam Express. We'll get you there. That's it. Okay, and we're back. And so let's talk about the main causes of death that we have for the film. The big problem I have with the film and why I can't give it a higher rating is because it's way too long. It's 2.5 hours, and there is a good half hour of the film that I think you could easily cut out because it adds absolutely nothing to the developing plot. And it actually occurs during a more, important part of the story. So once Sam has met Optimus Prime and he learns the
Oh, you.
backstory
Oh, I know
about
exactly what you're talking
yeah, you
about.
know where I'm
Yeah,
going with this. He
yeah,
learns the backstory about his great grandfather's glasses and all that. They're like, "Wait, Sam, do you have the glasses?" Then we cut to Sam going home
yeah.
to
And
look for his glasses
we
with
have a 10 out of 10 scene with everyone's favorite characters, Sam's parents.
yeah.
I
Where
I
Sam is searching for the glasses upstairs while five or six giant robots are sneaking around outside and supposed comic hijinks happen where Sam's parents think he's doing all kinds of other stuff. I just think this whole scene just fell so flat for me. And then after that,
And then
the
there's the slow car ride where
yes.
well, let's be honest, the whole thing could have been cut a whole lot shorter to where like they're like, okay, go get the glasses. He goes home, gets them, and then Sector 7 shows up. No Sam parents nonsense. And
Yes.
then Bumblebee gets transported. All that could have happened in like 2 minutes.
Yes, exactly. And so like that whole scene takes like 20 minutes. And it's not funny. I never bought the idea that the Autobot sneaking around in the backyard was ever believable. There's multiple urination scenes.
I and then Bumblebee peed on Simmons.
Yeah. And so
it
I'm
it
like, this is all
it
happening when we need to kind of keep the story going forward.
It's funny because when I was watching it, I just for most of that I was just kind of like whatever. But then when Michaela like reveals herself in Sam's room and like Sam's mom and dad kind of like give him fist bumps, I'm just like, what?
Yeah, none of that was believable. And so that's where the only purpose this serves is to get them from one place to another. And it's just a waste of like 20 minutes. And I think that that happens multiple times in the film where there are these very long sections. I'm not a person who says like you can't have downtime. And I understand, like I said, you can't
Yeah, but
have
the
the
thing is, this downtime is a big negative.
yeah, it's a big negative. And also, it's not a cheap negative. The robots are involved in this entire, 20-minute scene. So I'm thinking, you spent a lot of money to do these robots and you have them doing this stupid stuff. I was like, you
well,
could have done
well,
anything with them for these 20 minutes.
well, well. Again, here's what I said. These problems get worse later on. This is the what this low point here is the quote unquote Michael Bay comedy. And
Yes.
this is the entirety of the second movie.
Yeah. And so like that's the wrong lesson that he learned from this was like, oh, no, this was funny. I have two big problems with Megatron, so let me bring them up here.
Yeah.
Number one, Megatron is supposed to be kept in deep freeze. Their attempts to keep Megatron frozen are absolutely stupid. I say this as a scientist who has had things frozen. Megatron is in a big open area where you see people welding. They're not even dressed like it's cold, and I guess they're shooting him with like liquid nitrogen or something.
I
So I was like, wait, there are so many better ways. If you're saying like your goal is to keep this guy frozen, you're not really trying.
Uh, yeah, and when Frenzy breaks in and he like shuts down the freeze program, he's like the primary thing's down, and so is the backup generator. I was like, we don't have a backup or for the backup or backup, whatever. This high classified military like super weapon is just once these two things go down, he's just free. Like what?
Exactly. The cells that I have in the lab, there's a better backup system than that because again, they're immersed in liquid nitrogen. It's not simply me spraying liquid nitrogen on them all the time, which seemed to be their whole system. Like we got to just actively keep this guy cold. I was like, it was just too stupid. I was like, who is your scientific consultant for this film?
Yeah, and this is
Call me, I'll help you.
and here was a negative that I gave before we decided to do this podcast episode. I found it stupid that when things are exposed to the cube's energy, they automatically turn to Decepticons. I found that stupid, but apparently there's actually a reason for that, but it's still stupid.
What is the stupid reason?
The reason is that you remember there's the throwaway line in the movie where it says most of Earth's technology is
Oh yes,
made from reverse engineering Megatron. That's
yes.
why things default turn to Decepticons. It's still stupid, but at least
Yes,
it's a reason.
that was my second thing I want to talk about Megatron. I absolutely hate that line. One of the things I hate in movies is that very tired trope of saying the only reason mankind has all the technology we have is because it came from somewhere else. To me, as a human, I find that disrespectful.
Kind of underwhelms our creativity, doesn't it?
Exactly. I
It's like, oh
hate
yeah,
that.
we only made the telephone and the light bulb because Megatron crash landed.
Exactly. I hate that. We might get to this movie eventually in the podcast. Let us know in comments if you want to hear us tackle more of this series.
Yeah,
And like the
and number
beef,
two, if you're out there pumping your fist like, yeah, Sam's parents, I want to know if you actually exist.
yeah. Let us know. But later in like the Beast Wars, like the live movie, I can't remember if that's actually the name, but they have a great line where somebody says like, "Oh yeah, like you guys must be responsible for our technology," and the Autobots are like, "No, we can't take credit for human ingenuity." So I'm like, yes, why did they finally get it right like 5 or 6 movies in? Because I hate that in this film where it's like, "Oh, everything we have is all because of Megatron." So it's like, give humans some
Yeah.
credit. Stop being lazy.
Again, it's still dumb, but at least it's a reason for why it happens. Still
Yeah.
stupid.
Another small cause of
Yeah,
death,
you have another
and
little nitpick here, or
yeah,
cause of
this
death.
this actually might not be as bad here as it is later. The product placement in the film stood out a lot.
Oh yeah, there's Xbox, there's Furbies,
Yeah, there's
there's the Mountain Dew machine that turns
yeah,
into a
the
robot.
Mountain the Mountain Dew robot. So there's a lot of call out to various product. There's just obvious product placement, even outside of the cars themselves, which I kind of get. And so this is obviously something that filmmakers need to do to pay the bills when they're making
Yeah,
films. It was just a bit obnoxious in this film.
just take a shot. How many times someone in the movie says Camaro?
I thought about this. Yeah, we don't condone doing these types of activities on Movie Postmortem, but I thought you could do two types of drinking games. Take a shot whenever there's product placement, or take a shot whenever there's a slow motion scene.
Yeah.
Which one do you think would kill somebody first?
Oh goodness, you might end up in the hospital from both. Actually,
So yeah, that was just something that stood out to me. The very obvious and sometimes completely unnecessary product placement. Again, not trying to give shade to filmmakers. We understand you got to pay the bills for these films. I think the budget for this one was just like $150 million.
yeah.
But don't make it so obvious. And so since we've covered all of our causes of death or celebration, we'll take another quick break and then we'll come back with our script stitch ups. Do you need a car? Do you need a deal? Then come on down to Uncle Bobby B's legendary used car emporium, the finest car lot this side of Cybertron. We have features you can't resist: low prices, high mileage. These cars have been through some things, but hey, some things are better when they're broken in. Mysterious custom features. Ever wanted a radio that changes the station by itself? You might get lucky. Guaranteed to run on 4 wheels or 2 legs. And for a limited time only, trade in your old car and you'll get your new car with half the cost and also half the warranty. And if your car starts talking to you, that's just an advanced security feature. It's definitely not alien technology. Mention this ad and use the promo code POSTMORTEM for a free air freshener and possibly an out of this world adventure. Uncle Bobby B's legendary used car emporium. Because everybody deserves a car with a little attitude. Okay, and we're back. And so we've talked a lot about some of the big things that are wrong with the film. And when we do our script stitch ups, we try to focus on only the things that are here in the film as it exists right now. And so let's try
Yeah,
to follow our own rules. And
yeah. We're gonna kind of try to keep it in with this one.
so for me, one of the ones I kind of talked about already, I think you have to cut out maybe 50 minutes of this film. I think there are a
Absolutely.
couple of sequences that don't add anything. Once Sam goes to look for the glasses, I think you honestly can cut that entire scene at the house. I think you can cut most of the stuff in the car ride with Sector 7. Most of it is just it's not important. You don't learn anything. The humor falls really flat. You can gain 20 minutes there. I think some of the earlier scenes also have moments like that where you can really just cut out and you don't lose any of the humor. You don't lose anything but kind of just wasted time. So I think this film is just too
Yeah,
long. So I think you just cut out a lot of those moments. And in my
yeah.
opinion, cut out Sector 7. I don't feel you need them at all.
And then Bumblebee peed on Simmons.
Yeah.
One of the things that you can most definitely cut out. I'm just sitting there like, why do we need that?
Yeah.
Again, because this is stuff that Michael Bay thinks is funny.
Yes.
50% of the humor in this movie actually kind of works for me.
Yes, and that's what I was surprised by. I don't hate the stuff he does. I can see this as the origins to what he does later. That's a problem, but I don't hate it here. It's just that later I think he went too far. And
Yeah.
so I
It's
think
like the issues we have with jazz gets worse with two certain
yes.
ghetto robots that don't read for some reason.
Yes, and I think this is where you could see the seeds of, and I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it. You could argue in later films, oh, Michael Bay just sees black people as immediate comic relief.
Yeah, including that what was that guy's name? The guy that Anthony, what's his name, plays? That
Yeah,
black dude, that
yeah.
black
Did we
hacker
ever actually
guy.
name his name? Glenn. I feel like we don't
Glenn,
ever
that's
say
it.
his name. Yeah, yeah, Glenn. It's like everything involving him was just comedy. But again, it's not. I'm not gonna say it wasn't funny. I don't
Yeah,
think this is the film where Michael Bay goes overboard with that kind of stuff.
yeah,
But you can see the seeds planted
yeah.
here.
I will admit, I still found it funny when the FBI broke into his house and his cousin just full out just dives through the window.
Yeah. Like it doesn't make any sense except for like the sake of comedy. But you kind of get like, yeah, this is the kind of beginning of him going too far with comedy. And I think that's the thing where for this type of movie that's a true like an action ride, like you're at a theme park. I don't need it to be funny, so just keep the humor to a minimum. That's why I said you have great actors who have natural charisma, Shia LaBeouf and not Omar, Shia LaBeouf and Tyrese Gibson, Josh Duhamel. They're funny. You don't have to keep pumping up scenes of humor. I did not really like any of the scenes with Sam's parents. It all was kind of cringy to me. So I felt like there was
It's
a lot you could cut out.
I don't know how I feel about this still. When Sam was in the police department, what did you feel about that? when Because I was just when the cop is just being weird, I'm just like, what is
Yeah.
this guy?
Are you reaching for my gun, 50 Cent? Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, fill up the cup, no drippy drippy. I'm just like, what
Yeah.
is this?
That's classic Michael Bay humor.
I'm just like, are we watching Transformers or is this Bad Boys? What is this?
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. Like, so much of this film is so reminiscent of Bad Boys, where I felt like, yeah, I could see this being in another film. The whole 360, camera rotating around the gun, like the gun shootout, like he was borrowing his own stuff, like when they're in the bunker with Frenzy at the end. I'm like, yeah, this is a lot of this is Bad Boys humor. And that's why I feel like it's Michael Bay's problems are not unique to just this film. It's the same stuff he's done, usually better in other films. So yeah, like I was like, yeah, cut the Bad Boys humor. You don't need it for Transformers.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that Michael Bay just wanted this to be a paycheck movie. But then as he kept working on it, he was like, oh, maybe I can make a franchise out of this.
Yeah,
So
again,
I feel like while he was making the movie, he started to give more of a care about it.
yeah, I was surprised he stayed with it as long as he did. I would have expected it's the kind of thing he did maybe one or two and then left. Like he stayed on for a really long time.
Yeah,
So
it's weird. Even Transformers 1 has his name on it.
yeah, like it's something that I think he grew to love and maybe care about. But yeah, like I'm not gonna pretend I don't like Michael Bay. I love a lot of his
Yeah.
films. It was just some of the stuff, like you said, that's a great call out. Some of this is Bad Boys humor, and it's just like just leave it in the other films. That's kind of the reality of Transformers. I enjoyed rewatching it. I have some big problems with it, but as you
Yeah.
said,
But
despite those
again,
problems, it's still enjoyable.
this is still a fun movie.
I think I'll stay with kind of what I said about my rating. I think this is a 3.5 out of 5 star movie for me, and this is like a quintessential guilty pleasure film.
Yeah. You know what? After this little cathartic journey we've been on, I'm gonna join you in that rating. I'm gonna move my star up a 5. A 0.5 rather.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we both kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, by no means is this the next Shawshank Redemption, mind you, but
Yeah.
for what this is, it's still pretty fun.
Yeah, and I can't deny being a Transformers fan since the 80s, seeing this on the big screen, it was just such a fun experience. I know for a fact, if they ever decided to, reboot or continue the Transformers franchise, I would be willing to give it another chance, especially after the last couple of movies that I felt did a
Yeah.
decent job of, fixing some of the mistakes that this movie, made and some of
Well,
the
again,
subsequent movies made.
it's just like how we said in our last episode. If this is the bare minimum, let's try to keep it above this.
Yes, yeah, I think that's what you have to think about going forward. Like, don't go below this. And I also think there is a place in film for kind of what we're talking about. Sometimes franchises go on for such a long time, you have no, option but to just say, you know what, guys, we're starting over now.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
forget these existed, and we're
Yeah.
gonna just do a sequel from the first and pretend the rest of them never happened.
I mean, for example, how many of you out there are like pumping your fists waiting for the next Family Guy episode to come out? It's like sometimes the franchises just go on for so long where you're just like, okay, that's enough. We did our best. Let's just start over. Forget the last few seasons happened.
I like Family Guy catching strays on movie postmortem.
I mean, hey, are you a defender of Family Guy? Because I know
I'm
I'm not.
not. No, that's fair. Like I said, there was one of the things that I used to love watching and I stopped. And I think that's fair. I always tell people I don't feel I owe my allegiance to any, intellectual property, any
Yeah,
series, any
it's funny
franchise. You
because
can get off the ride anytime you want.
yeah, and it was a legit argument to get him to do this episode with me because he didn't want to give his money to Michael Bay. I was like, dude, no, you're giving money to Paramount, not Bay. It's a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, Paramount has some, hits that I like. And, for them, I'm sure they would love to have this come back. And that was a disappointing thing for those of you who have listened to our episode on Transformers 1, their decision to go back and do animation instead of live action. I think it was just the unfortunate sins of not this Transformers film, but all the other ones that really killed the box office chance of that movie. So,
Yeah.
unfortunate, but yeah. So if you've never seen Transformers, even if you don't like or don't know about, the robots, I think you'll enjoy this as an action movie. So before we wrap up, I also want to let people know that you can find us on Blue Sky. So if you go to Movie Postmortem, bluesky.social, you'll find us. Check us out if you're on Blue Sky. I promise you it'd be kind of funny to follow. You'll enjoy kind of some of the things that I post. That's it for this episode of Movie Postmortem. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give us 5 stars because even bad podcasts deserve a good review. Remember, whether it's good, bad, or just a guilty pleasure, every movie deserves a postmortem. Thanks for listening.
And as always, we are here. We are waiting. See you next time.